We had to buy property from the city, from the state, from CSX Railroad, from Bank of America, from a church.
All right, episode 11 of The Deal Ranch. We have a couple cool guests today. So we have Landon Zimmer, thanks for joining, and then Joe Wasserman. And we are at Zimmer Development Company here in Wilmington. Immaculate story overall. Started one of the largest jewelry companies, your family did, in the whole country. Evolved now into $3 billion in developed assets across different asset classes. So love to hear the story today. So Landon, if you want to kick it off with a little intro on yourself, and then Joe the same.
Sure. No, thank you. My name is Landon Zimmer, managing partner at Zimmer Development Company. I've been here about 15 years, lawyer by trade, and wear a lot of hats here. Joe, you can talk, or what do you do here, Joe?
And I'm Joe Wasserman. I'm the Chief Financial Officer, and I have been here since 2000, and time goes fast. I came from the D.C. area. Previously worked at Combined Properties up there.
Yep. And you worked at Cap REIT after that as well?
Well, so my story is got out of, went to UVA, graduated, and worked in D.C. for KPMG. Over that time, I had maybe one real estate client and a lot of unrelated clients, in which I didn't involve. I didn't enjoy auditing inventory, right, in a suit and hot warehouse and everything. So I left to go for a local real estate developer in Tyson's Corner. And I had a stint there and then went to Combined Properties. I worked there for quite a few years until the family had a large feud. And then I left for Cap REIT for a stint as controller. Went back to the Combined Properties as CFO, and then came down to Wilmington eventually.
Amazing. I want to hear more about this story in a little bit. So zooming out, Landon, can you give like an overview of like what Zimmer Development Company does right now?
Sure. Yeah, we do kind of jack of all trades. We do mixed use. Got our start in commercial. We can talk about that in a little bit, but right now, kind of more focused on multifamily, student housing, and I guess other commercial. Is that fair to say?
I would say
retail, but not very much.
These days, it's ancillary to the multifamily, like a ground lease,
right,
and things like that. But we're not actively pursuing new drugstores or grocery stores right now.
Yeah. Well, at one point in time, I read that you were the largest Food Lion leaser, right, across the country, which is quite insane if you think about it. It's a big deal.
Yes.
In zooming out, so starting with the family history, Landon, your grandfather started Reed's Jewelers in 1946, which is now, I think, maybe the sixth largest jewelry company in the country. And at one point, you guys were public as well. How'd they buy the first store? I know it started as one singular store they bought here in Wilmington, and then now you're in 13 states. So how'd it get rolling?
Yeah, so my grandfather came back from World War II. He served in the Pacific. Met my grandmother at that time from Birmingham, and they both they joked they picked the middle and came to Wilmington. He was from Buffalo, New York. She's from Birmingham. So they came to Wilmington. There was a family jewelry store over there named Reed's. So, they didn't think about growth or intellectual property in the future, but they came here and started a Reed's as well, and I think he had a couple partners here, and then bought them out, and then grew over time. I believe went public in the 80s, and then after Sarbanes-Oxley, I think went private again because we weren't big enough to really be a publicly traded company, or weren't in the business of being a publicly traded company. So went private around maybe 2000, and I believe it's the largest privately held jewelry chain, and good. And I used to do a lot of work. Used to do more work there, and now a little more focused on the development side. But great organization, very professionally run, and have our board meetings every quarter.
There you go. So between 1946 and then 1989, when ZDC was created, your father was a part creator with his brother of Zimmer Development Company. What was that stretch of time like, and when did they start developing commercial assets? Like, what made them want to start the business, and did they have any exposure besides setting up and leasing jewelry stores in between?
Yeah, so Dad was always really involved, and Jeff, his brother as
Yep.
well, who were, they both run ZDC. They were very involved with the real estate of the jewelry company, and I believe Dad used to buy a bunch of downtown buildings. In hindsight, wish he kept a lot of those here, but he and Jeff's father-in-law at the time was big into I believe developing golf courses, power centers, and he was
Kmart's
out of South Carolina, and I guess they kind of thought instead of they were a law firm at the time, and I think they figured instead of giving advice to businesses, maybe start doing some business themselves. So I think that's when they first started dabbling in more into the retail and commercial side in the late 80s, early 90s.
What was the first, I guess, what was the hypothesis in starting the development company? You have a lot of companies that, hey, we want to do multifamily, or you had this kind of retail experience they did. Were they going to just acquire assets? Because now you guys are building 300-400 unit. I read something about a 40-story tower going on as well. But what was the original hypothesis of what they wanted to start doing? Were they going to acquire? Were they going to develop?
I
early years
hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Joe. You tell me, but maybe they'll get mad at me later. But I don't think they had a hypothesis. I think it was just, one deal at a time, and I think there were a lot of triple net leases more back then that they were interested in, and kind of.
I think what started it off, Jeff might have been approached on an incomplete food line to finish out, and he. It went successfully, finishes out, he financed out after the completion. And then what I think happened when the RTC had some properties, he grabbed some of those and was able to, get a real bargain on some of those. And I think early on, Jeff felt like it was more lucrative to do development from the ground up, especially with the food lines, versus buying completed assets.
Wow. Fascinating. And then between your start here, Joe, in 1989, how much of the base has been built for the company? Like, had they developed quite a few projects in that time frame?
So, I started in 99, but I know from since when I started, the law practice was still going. And so both were going at once, and eventually the development company overtook.
Wow.
In the early 2000s, so that it was the main focus. Zimmer & Zimmer was kept to support the development company and Reed's, but not really taking a lot of outside clients.
Wow.
And it just progressed into, during the 90s, a lot of single tenant, triple net leases, drugstores, and the food lines.
Yeah.
With the vast broker network bringing these, we had in-house broker, deal makers, and it just kept growing from there.
Wow. That's the one storyline I couldn't really read much online, was the law firm. So you see Reed's, and then you see the history of ZDC. Was that the second business, was creating the law firm, and then obviously having that now, I assume, is serve significant competitive advantages to having in-house?
So when my dad, I guess after graduating law school, moved back to Wilmington, he started a law firm and started downtown, and then built the building we're in now, which, as you can see, is looks kind of like when he was building it, they thought it was the jail, but not many windows here. So yeah, we're happy to be moving to our new office shortly. But
that's right.
It's but it's cozy. But so he started his law firm here, and then Jeff came out of law school and then joined the firm. I think they had maybe 10 or 15 lawyers at one point. So it was one of the larger firms in the area. And just over time, as people left, transitioned away, they just kind of winnowed it down to, just mostly handling legal issues for Reed's, handling legal issues for the development side, taking out some outside cases. And over time, that taking the outside cases has kind of diminished into one every, couple of years. But, those dudes still take a lot of time for Dad, but that's pretty much the history of the firm. But at their peak, I would say they were the top top or one of the top law firms in the area. Yeah.
Oh wow, fascinating. I didn't pick up on that. So for you being third generation of this business, and like we just kind of outlined, there are 3 businesses there. You went to Duke, got your MBA, you went to law school there in your undergrad. When did you get exposure to the business growing up, and then when did you go to school just to come back to the business, or what was the plan? Yeah.
No, I didn't. So I guess I started. My dad would wake me up and, at Christmas in middle school, or, and get me in the store, and I didn't really have any proper training, so really didn't know what I was doing. But cleaning cases and would help, and I never had a key number or anything, so I wasn't getting paid. Probably child labor laws, but so then in high school worked in the stores. Used to intern over summers, just go to the home office, work in every different department. Kind of learned how a lot of the business was run then, and after that, went to undergrad, public policy major, went to law school. I actually spent about a year writing a book with a professor there, and was working for Duke Law School.
What's the book? What was the book?
That's a good question. Well, it was Oxford University Press. It's called Terror and Tyranny. So it's like. Which is like, as a top publisher for academia.
Yep.
And I was working with a professor I was co-authoring, and it was basically about, so I did a lot of work with Guantanamo Bay and criminal law there, and,
Wow.
There's no real major in law. You can do whatever you kind of want. And spent a lot of time with Guantanamo Bay defending the enemy combatants there, and worked with a lot of JAG officers. Thought I might want to go into that. But the book was basically about, post 9/11 and how the Patriot Act and different laws, how things were changing, but we took so long. I still don't think it's published. So, we got a lot of experience there. We like to say, but worked. Worked for Duke Law, and then Dad was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and we thought he was going to pass away. So, came back to work with him, and fortunately, he's still here. He's had.
What year was that you came back?
That was 2008 maybe. Yeah, graduated in 2007, so it'd be 2008, and he. And I was looking at firms in Charlotte or Atlanta, DC, and just to probably go work at a white shoe firm, they call them, and but he wasn't doing well, and didn't have a great chance, but overcame the odds, and since then he's I think had cancer once or twice more, and he's kind of a modern miracle, the doctors call him. So, and he's still working here. He's here today, obviously. So, but came back to do that, and then once I got started working here, fortunately, he got better, and Duke took care of him at the hospital there. But came back and did a lot of work, maybe 50%, even 70% for reads back then. Just gotten out of, I guess, undergrad a few years before, marketing, public policy major, so had a lot to do with that, and worked at Reads a lot. Then went back to the.
What were you doing there at that time after school?
So there was a lot of. After what? Sorry.
After school, you said after undergrad you went to Reeds.
After undergrad, I went to law school. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Good.
But I was saying after that, and came back here, spent a lot of my, even though I was working out of this office, spent maybe 50% of the majority of my time over at Reeds.
Oh, wow.
And so we kind of jumped between the two home offices, and then went back to weekend executive MBA. Got my, MBA at Duke, and then spent a lot more time with Reeds there as well. And I guess that was maybe what was that? 2009. Maybe 10. No, I guess I graduated in 12, and so it was an interesting time. Right, came out of law school right into the Great Recession. You had a bunch of, I think that was the peak of lawyers. I'm sure everybody was real happy about that, but it was really hard. Everybody wanted to be a lawyer then, and I guess now they want to be coders or something. But no, so that's pretty much the history. And then after that, transitioned more into the development side.
Fascinating. So then, when you started back at Reeds, what were your responsibilities day to day? Like, what is that job, right? It's a family business, but also a massive company, and you're balancing development work. What were you doing day to day there?
Handled a lot of the leasing, a lot of the intellectual property, so some of the side locations, and just working with brokers a lot of the time there, and also was working more with marketing and with the e-commerce department, which was kind of it'd been around for maybe 10 years at that point, but it was kind of in its infancy as to compared to what it is now. So, just helping to grow that, expand that at the time. It's kind of the Wild West. Well, it still is kind of with e-commerce, right? But it was a very busy time over there.
Fascinating. Joe, I'm going to come back to you, then we'll bring them everything to modern date here. So you started 1999 online. It says 2000. What
2000.
What you're in Maryland? Maybe I missed it earlier, but what inspired the connection here? What interested you in coming here? How did you?
Well, interesting story. So when I was in D.C. for Combined Properties, my commute was an hour and a half each way, and horrible traffic. My previous boss, who I took his position, he interviewed for the open position down here, and he said, he called me. He said, "This is great. The area is fantastic, great opportunity, but my family doesn't want to leave D.C. You should check it out." And he called me at the right time because my commute was so long each way. I said, and it was winter, and I was like, "Oh, I'll check it out." And went down. Of course, the area at Wilmington sells itself. I met with Herb and Jeff.
Do we have lunch that day with you?
Yes, and that's a longer story. but I said that, the commute of 20 minutes. Come on, this has got to be great. So came down and started officially February 2000. I think I started, and at that time, like I said, the law practice was still operating here. So you'd have people at the door. They might have had a drug offense or something in there, and it was an interesting, busy time. And at that time, it was primarily retail, the single tenant, and grocery stores and
Hollywood videos.
I read those online. I saw a ton of them.
A lot of Rite Aids, Eckerd's, Hollywood Videos, and Food Line centers all over the place. West Virginia, Hugo, Oklahoma, and then from then it morphed into the Power Center, like Jefferson Village, and of course our biggest retail was the Lifestyle Center of Mayfair. After that. Yeah.
Wow. So in 2000, when you come on board to current, right? There's a lot. Everything's different now. It seems you sold the Mayfair. We have this big project. I've read quite a few big projects. Not just all of these 200, 300, 400 unit apartment deals across the country you're building, but this potential tower in Raleigh, and then I think maybe a 790 unit deal in Ohio that's been stalled for a little bit of time just for environmental or maybe traffic reasons, but
we're moving on that one.
There you go. Love to hear about it.
Okay.
How do you unpack this monster? You guys run a powerhouse development company here. You go from doing just triple net leases, you're saying, and just these big box stores or Kmart or rather Food Line too. Let me take a step back. What is the company most driven by? Is it like just cash flow? Is it exiting a deal? Or are there certain target returns? Like, how do you prioritize what deals you do and what asset classes you get into?
I think, I don't know, Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're mostly looking for, a certain return on a project, and it varies. It all depends on, where it is, what it is. But I think that transition more, more into multifamily mixed use lately is how it's been. But there's really I think I like to say we're kind of a little more, our culture's a little more entrepreneurial here.
Yep.
We're not really, when we go talk to, rezoning or go and talking to city council or neighbors, we tell them, we don't, it's basically the siblings and the family that makes the decision. We don't have a board that it makes a decision. There's not, if we want to make it a little nicer, we can make it nicer. It's we don't have to, meet these bottom lines to continue forward. And we don't have a pension fund in Alaska to, serve. So we can be a little more flexible on different issues.
Then where does the creativity come from at the company level? So we have you guys that make a lot of decisions, I'm sure, but you're in all of these different states. You're developing at multiple different asset classes in multiple states. Where do opportunities stem from? Like, how do you decide, hey, we want to build, I think, apartments near the stadium at FSU is a project. How do you find new markets? Where do deals? How do you analyze opportunity?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I don't think there's really, I wish we had more of a method to our madness, but I think that, my cousins and I will just, Joe also will, and Adam Tucker, our director of development or vice president, I guess now. We'll just look for deals in different areas we like due to whatever reason, whatever, growth or anything we see going forward. But there's, like I said, and once we get those, then we can, take them back to the family, take them back to the partners, take a look, and if they like the area, progress a little more, and then start spending a little more money.
Yeah, I would say, a lot of it comes in from a vast broker network.
Fascinating.
But once we have successful deals in a territory, we tend to do a part two. So, Burlington, Southern Pines, and especially at FSU, where, we already know the demographics.
Fascinating.
And expand on that.
So two things I think that leads me to there. So one, brokers don't just bring anyone deals. Brokers bring deals to people that they've worked with or can trust or can really give them a decision quickly or not. Your reputation precedes itself in a lot of different ways, but how do you build over all these years these quality relationships with folks where they're bringing you deals? Because besides maybe a deal getting posted on a website for an apartment deal or something, like they're coming to their top client, right, to develop. So at what point or how did you guys develop all those quality relationships to get there?
Well, I don't really get many brokers coming to me. They come to Joe. So I have to go find the deals usually a lot of times when they're local brokers. But Joe can tell you more about about brokers coming to us.
Yeah, I mean, we get constant calls from unsolicited Marcus Millichap or something like that. But I would say it's such a long history of completed transactions that's why we're being approached ahead of just a mass listing. And over the years we have sold some, and those same brokers do come to us. There's land brokers, and they know not to bring completed projects, that we are ground up developers primarily. I will say, like in the challenging financing environment of loan brokers, there is this, the flight of lenders to quality and good sponsors and things like that, and so that's why we're still able to do things even in this environment.
Fascinating. As far as not just developing deals, but it seems like you guys are able to, from our first interaction on the phone, you said during 2008. Well, I actually asked you about today. I'm like, are you guys buying partially completed, which you just answered no, right? Partially completed development deals.
Not
where people
really.
Yeah. But you mentioned during 2008 that I think you were buying discounted paper, and some of the returns were closer to 50%, which
very
seems
lucrative
absurd.
for note purchasing during that after the downturn. And so that and Landon will remember that was like the business for that point in time.
Wow.
Yeah, that's more that entrepreneurial spirit, I'd say. Just working with doing friendly note purchases, working with all parties, not doing anything without anyone else, knowing, didn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
This may be a dumb question, but I'm curious on the answer. So you guys have migrated. One, business is very well over time, but two, asset classes, you said right now apartments is the big focus, but during 2008 it just seemed like paper was the focus, right? Buying discounted notes. How are you guys able to be so nimble so quick, and like what I guess market indicators do you pick up on? Like when do you know it's time to sunset an asset class or move on? Like how do you guys get a pulse on what you want to do around here? It seems like
I wish I knew. I would say again, I would say just I don't know. I think Dad and Jeff and even Joe, having seen it all several cycles before, right? So I think maybe 15. What month is it? Maybe 18 months ago, we started tightening up on not as many new projects. Kind of saw things coming, slowing down. Not in a recession, but things aren't booming like they were. And I think they were smart to kind of foresee what was coming and start tapping the brakes and not getting rid of any projects, but just not taking anything new on and kind of slowly tightening the pipeline. Yeah.
Interesting. One of the things that fascinated me most about the company, for myself, getting started earlier just in buying multifamily, doing smaller acquisitions, developing. certainly a completely different animal, but these projects and all the newspaper articles I read on you guys, this deal stalled for 3 years, this deal stalled for 4, this deal started. But then I also read, Landon, that you're on the board of North Carolina Department of Transportation, and then commissioned for,
Wildlife.
Wildlife, right?
Wildlife, yeah.
Those two obviously scream to me like, one, it's nice for the company, and one, that you can help the community as well on all those levels. But it seems like a lot of these projects are getting stalled around, obviously, environment or traffic. I have no exposure really to, besides on other podcasts, what the day-to-day life is on these large development deals. Like, how do you keep the ball rolling after 3 years? For me, it's like, okay, you can acquire a deal. There's a timeline to it. It may come or go just as an opportunity, but your money's already in the dirt for some of these projects, and then it pauses. So, like, walk me through how life works on these multi-year deals.
That's a great question. So I guess by accident have become kind of an expert. Well, I wouldn't say expert. I've become a lot more knowledgeable about environmental and brownfields, and that's something I always liked, in school, studied, and found it interesting, and kind of that's what my focus has been, I'd say, the past maybe 10 years now. So Tallahassee, that's maybe 40 acres we have there adjacent to the FSU and Florida A&M, and there's Tallahassee Community College there, and that's a big mixed-use product. We've got maybe 1,400 beds right now in about 3 phases. We got about 3 more phases, but that's a constant brownfield. So this week, talking to our environmental experts, saying some areas are clean, some areas aren't clean. We got to every year, and also the FDP, their Environmental Protection State Agency. We're entered into a brownfield remediation agreement with them, and it's constantly being updated with remediating certain areas, making sure we don't disturb other areas. So Florida, that's interesting. So that one's, it's been 9 years, and we're still, heck, we probably got 6-7 more years till that thing is completely remediated and done. A lot of the remediation is part of the development itself as well, the construction, and some of it you do beforehand, some of it you do during construction. So it's all unique to the site, but the I don't know, it is kind of a little uplifting that you have a dirty site and you clean it up, and the residential standards are the highest standards there are, and every state's different. So that's the Florida, been ongoing with that for 9 years. Columbus took about that's when we've been working on that one for 4 years now.
Yep.
We've owned the property for about a little over a year, and it's about 15-20 acres in the middle of a park in downtown Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
And so that site, that's just been ongoing, dealing with the neighbors. Our neighbor is Metro Parks there, which is a state park agency up in Ohio, and it's just a site with a lot of hair on it. That one was one of the ones that I kind of held off on. I knew it'd be tough, but I always like those projects. I think they're fun because I'm maniacal or crazy, but there's more value. There's more value to unlock once you get everything done there. That site's in a floodplain. It's contaminated, and but we got rezoned, and now we're moving forward with permitting right now. So just every site's different. So Ohio, there I believe it's ODEQ up there. They've got grant money for brownfields. Florida has tax credits. North Carolina, that site downtown, what they'll do is the state has a great program where first year you pay 0% taxes, then the next year will be 25%, then 50, 75, then 100, and so they kind of ramp up your taxes. So you get different states have different rules, I guess. So you got to find experts who know those specific states. Virginia is another state that's basically just you clean it up and you don't get you lose your liability for it. So every state's different, and been fortunate to work with some good experts in those fields.
I've read I think maybe it would have been an article about Columbus, but you said typically it's hardest the harder a site is to develop, the more value there is to unlock, right? And
sometimes, usually, yeah.
Yeah. I think anything, right? The like Steve Schwartzman says, like the more complicated the problem, the more it can pay you typically too. But as far as these deals, these ones that you highlighted, besides maybe the inherent challenge, but like how are you attracted to it? Like, is it a significant deficiency in Columbus? You're like, okay, we need housing here, or like what draws you into, hey, we got to do this project, or is it solely return? Like what? What makes you want to do these long 5-year deals?
No, I do enjoy the challenge, and like so Tallahassee, Florida, we knew, we were big on student housing then, so we created a. That's when I had a lot more time on my hands. Created a kind of algorithm or spreadsheet, make it sound not as sexy, but a spreadsheet basically that had a bunch of indicators that we liked, and it
Wow.
Florida State was maybe 10th on the list, so we were going down the list, and at Florida State talked to a broker he's amazing. If you're ever in Tallahassee, Pete Gonzalez, he's the best, and he's assembled over 100 parcels for us there. And I mean,
Walt Disney-esque, it sounds like.
he's the man. Yeah. He was knocking on doors, getting it done.
Wow.
And but that he showed me 10 different sites, and this one he's saved. This one was the last one. Someone else had tried it. They weren't able to do it. It's not like we were. It was the first impression, but we had to buy property from the city, from the state, from CSX Railroad, from Bank of America, from a church,
and a big cement plant.
big CEMEX, publicly
Wow.
traded company. So we were dealing with all these publicly traded companies, and just were able to assemble it, and it worked out well. But that was a site that, again, I guess the city or the state had put a lot of money into this Gaines. It's called the Gaines Street corridor. This used to be really big industrial. A friend of mine's wife, she went there maybe 20 years ago. She's like, that's a terrible location. I was like, well, it was 20, 30 years ago, but it's gotten, they've upgraded the streets, and
But thank you.
yeah, no, she was right at the time. It was,
Okay.
it was bad. No, it was a terrible location. But I guess to answer your question though, I know it sounds stupid. I don't want to sound like I don't know everything there is, but like end of the day, location, right? Like I mean, if you've got
Yep.
a good location, that's where you want to be.
With these longer projects, and obviously a lot of it can get into, it seems heavily political, right? The larger the deal, the larger the red tape, it seems, especially in larger cities than we have here in the southeast, like your northeast city. What do you think are the largest challenges for these large projects? The payoff's huge. I mean, they're multi-$100 million deals you guys are developing, but there's a lot of areas where these deals can fail. I'm sure you underwrite a lot of that in there, but sometimes, just like every other deal, there's stuff that you can't forecast. Like, what are the largest challenges, and what do you guys really focus on? This is a vague question, but how are you making so many of these projects successful when there's so many areas for them to fail or stall?
Well, I don't know. I guess the ones you see are the ones we've been successful on.
Right.
But I think just getting in the details. Meeting with neighbors, meeting with the local, planning commission before going ahead, and if they have any issues, what are those issues? Can you solve those beforehand? And just ticking them away over time. And I'll tell you, Zoom's made it a lot easier because not having to visit all these cities for used to travel a lot more prior to the pandemic.
And Joe, you're rolling all of these development deals. You have people at the company that are making the deals, putting them together. What, as CFO, you're overseeing operations or financial operations, so to speak, for the entire company. But on a deal-to-deal, if you see something that's paused, what do you do in that?
Yeah,
How's
well,
that
of
work
course,
for
in
you?
this environment, that's our industry. A lot of paused deals.
Everything. Right?
But on the plus side, the land appreciation during the pause is significant.
Oh, wow.
And it actually helps you later with your land value going in when you're ready to go with the financing. Some of our projects, it's not just raw land, it's an opportunity zone land, which has a whole slew of other benefits for us. But yeah, you have to basically, be patient to get everything in place, and just know that you got to hold these for a little bit longer, kind of thing. But we do have some projects that we were ready to go a lot earlier, and now we're going to, it's with the financing challenge. At least while we're waiting, the land's appreciating for us.
Wow.
So.
Shifting gears a little bit, making it this many years, obviously a third generation company. For you, Landon, I'm sure has quite a few challenges that come into making it successful all these years. But in this business, folks getting through the 70s, maybe early 2000s, making it through 2008, like being, whether you're running a fund or you're acquiring deals, it comes with a certain risk tolerance. But being a developer seems like it has the highest risk tolerance because you're putting so much money out there, and you hear so many stories about developers that were on the cusp of losing hundreds of millions of dollars in a single deal in 2008. to make it all of these decades and be successful, cliche question, but what do you guys do differently than other companies? What do you focus on? It seems like one of the things I read, you're like, hey, we're going to do it at our pace, and I don't know where it is in here as a quote. We're going to proceed at our pace and at our own design. So it seems like patient is a critical skill at the company here, but what else is it that makes it feasible to make it through all these years developing large projects?
That's another good question. I would say maybe having a good mix of individuals here. People are kind of our best asset here, and I guess having folks who, some part of the family pushes to go. Others is a little more cautious.
Right.
It's kind of good to have that mix there. But sometimes, for Tallahassee, for instance, I'm again really into the details, and sometimes it's like, what, you just got to go forward, and you don't waste too much time. You want it to be nice, and you want to be detail oriented, but on the other hand, it's nice to have a little push and pull of both sides, I guess. What do you, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And you mentioned earlier, there's no pension fund that we're accountable to, where there's paralysis from the analysis or whatever it's saying. It's because I know there's a shopping center here they bought over the weekend, the old Pepsi plant. So the decision making is.
You guys bought over the weekend?
Or his uncle and father.
Dan and Jeff
So the decision process is really quick, and it is appealing to also when we were involved with P3 and student housing on campus and stuff. That is an advantage to get a turnaround of decision making to move forward or not very, very quickly.
Wow. With a job that requires, especially both of your roles, I think, in any high-level real estate business or successful business, it comes with a lot of pressure and stress, right? I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars or more on some of these deals, but what excites you to get out of bed every day? Is it day-to-day project life? What do you like most about the job? What do you like most about doing deals?
I just think, I don't know, every day is different. So,
yeah.
These projects, just there's always something new, something to do. And I mean, I'm working on a handful right now, but I guess different ones differently along in the schedule. So
yeah,
it's just, I don't know, it's a different day every day. It keeps it interesting.
What do you think, Joe?
I think it's fun to work on some of our exciting projects. Also, I like to see some of these legacy projects that I'm familiar with since 2000 have multiple lives, from a Rite Aid to a vacant to a church to a gas station to I mean they which are have unique new financing challenges based on what happens, and it's like it's not a stagnant portfolio to see a lot of the changes going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be quite the puzzle to balance the portfolio here, especially with wide range of assets, and I'm sure financing structure on each deal too. It's probably pretty unique. Well, a good transition point. On every episode, I try to highlight one deal, and we can get into the weeds. Could be timeline challenges, numbers. Mayfair stood out to me just because it's a significant deal, one, for the Wilmington community, and two, I've been to it, I've shopped at it there, so it made sense to talk about. But do you want to talk about that project, or maybe the Raleigh building, or a little bit of both? What do you think?
A little bit of both.
Let's do both. So starting with Mayfair, I think first doors 2004. Fill me in, like, whose idea was it? It's 400 acres or so. Like, how did it come to be?
I can speak to that. So
perfect.
This project started, I think, 99, right before I started here, and it was in the works. And the story goes that the attorney for the previous owner, it was a farm, had the same attorney as our partner Hyman Brody of Brody Co. And I believe they were put together. And but the story goes there was an offer for sale over the old fax machines, and they didn't hear anything for 6 months, right? And thought it was dead, and then all of a sudden the acceptance comes back. And so the land was under contract, but it was residential, so there was no mixed ordinance at the time.
Wow.
So the Zimmers helped create our actual mixed-use zoning ordinance in Wilmington.
No way.
And when they, after they bought the land residential, it qualified for mixed use. Suddenly the value, escalates.
Wow.
just before breaking ground anywhere. And then I think they really got going around between 2003 2005. The first lease was Hex for the ground lease, which paid them nothing, basically.
$1 for 99 years.
But you have to.
How about that deal?
You would have to have them to make the whole thing work, and then they did the phase one. I remember being out there in the trailer, a lot of activity. Maybe Red Robin, Smoky Bones were the first ones. And then, phase one was completed with of course, the theater was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And phase two was community center with the Harris Teeter. They also had a lot of conservation area that they got credits for and gave to NC State. Also sold off the townhomes and apartment land. But it was very successful. A fun project to be on. For this area, the retail was great for people who were used to going to Myrtle Beach or Raleigh.
Absolutely.
For shopping.
It's a beautiful area. How many retail tenants or locations are there over there? Like, how many stores are in that development?
Oh, gosh.
Roughly.
Because it's been since 2015, so I don't have the count. I'd have to go to our website, maybe.
Well, the question behind that question, let me do this then. When you guys develop this large of a project, I know you partnered with, you said Brody Co., and I read that online. Who's responsible for filling those tenants? How does that work? Like, how do you find
we hired a really good leasing person who worked for a larger company, which the name escapes me.
I don't know, but I'll take, as a developer, you want to take credit for stuff you never did, right? So I was in Durham at the time, and I remember there was Consolidated movie theaters at South Point. And I was like, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I called Dad. I was like, you got to get them, because we were looking for another major, I think, retailer there.
Wow.
And I said, you got to look at this movie theater. And it was the saying, Consolidated came here, that then sold to Regal. But, it was kind of very similar spin on what South Point was, streets of South Point.
Also, Mount Pleasant, the shopping center there, a lot of it, we hired the manager from there. And for Mayfair, and it will look similar to
it does, yeah.
That the feel of the Mount Pleasant. But early on, Roxana Kish is the name of the person who was really good leasing. She got national tenants, put them in.
Wow.
The timing was great before Amazon to fill up big box stores and things like that. And she got big names for the town that the mall couldn't get.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it became really successful. And then, they did phase two and then completed out phase three, all in maybe 8 or 9 years to start to finish to get it all in place.
Interesting.
And then sold in 2015.
So were there any big challenges prior to the sale? Were there any big challenges developing it along the way besides early on the zoning? Well,
the challenges were after it's developed, the co-tenancy clauses for these big box lease spaces, and that, like windows and things going bankrupt, then you have to have the replacement tenant, and there's always the challenge of filling it up so that maybe another tenant doesn't pay abated rent. So it was a lot of work in the management. We had in-house security, in-house marketing, gift card program and dealing with the public. So it was a lot of in-house employees at the time. So the challenges were after it was developed, not getting it built.
And the co-tenancy issue is like, if us, tenant A, is in here, we're going to sign this lease, you can't have our competitors in stores?
Well, it's if like Michael's likes to be by windows and things, it's both non-competing stores, but also we don't want to be by a big vacant box, so our rent will abate, things like that, or we kick in the percentage rent instead of regular rent. And then I would say the only other challenge was the downturn of the residential. They built the first 64 condos. They sold immediately.
The ones above the store?
Above the retail. And then a decision was made. Well, one thought was, well, let's build all the way to the theater and all the way in an L shape, nothing but condos you can never lose. And you're familiar with Market Common and what happened when they did that. Yeah. Luckily, the wise decision was, let's not do that. Yeah. Let's just build 10 on each side as extra. Yeah. Well, turns out it took like over 10 years to sell out those last 20 units. So that it could have been a disaster had we gone with many condos.
So takes 10, 11 years to, or we're 10 or 11 years in. It sells in 2015 for $192 million, I think, or something close to that. What sparks the decision to sell, and then how do you move an asset for $200 million? Do you contact a broker? I assume you're underwriting it at a cap rate. Like, walk me through the decision to sell and how it sells.
With the in-house decision, a lot of debate. I will tell you what sparked it was across the street sold for a low cap rate with no major tenants.
What was the cap rate?
At the time was 7 something. I mean, it was low for the time.
That's right.
With no national tenants to speak of, and of course, once the decision was made, we went to Saddle Studley as the broker. But there was a lot of debate: should we keep this? Should we sell? And remember, this is before Amazon, and the state of a lot of big boxes now. Yeah. Anything to add?
No, you covered it.
I mean,
it sounds like there might be more to the story.
Joe likes to remind me that I did not want to sell at the time, and as of now, he was right in wanting to sell. I'll just say that.
How long did it take to sell? So you make this decision where people are voting on yay or nay on it, and eventually you come to the decision that, we're going to sell it. Contact a broker. How long to get... I think someone who owned a bunch of other malls bought it from you guys.
CBL eventually bought it, but there were offers ahead of that fell through. So it might have been a 2-year period of had the offer, we were down the road, they couldn't close or something like that. Then it was back out to the second runner-up and things like that, and it eventually closed with CBL. Yeah. They both, they bought both. But soon after, they flipped the community center, but they retained management.
I think CBL might be Reed's largest landlord as well.
Oh,
or they were at the time. Yeah. So I believe the families have a good relationship. With them. They're a family out of Chattanooga. Yeah. Wow. They're developers out of Chattanooga.
For a deal this size. Is it just bank funding that they're closing with and you're kind of getting this all-cash transaction, or is there a component of seller finance or any other creative finance that seems like such a large asset?
No, they had the wherewithal as a public company to do it.
Yeah, very cool. Landon, it seems like we can pivot to your baby here from what I read online, this 40-story tower that's proposed to go into Raleigh. So I looked at it on Google Maps, and it seems like an absolutely killer location. One, what is prompting the development of a 40-story tower? Very Zeckendorfian, I suppose, in a way. To build something that big, it's going to be a huge component to the city there. How'd that idea start, and where's the project now?
Well, we assembled a couple parcels there, and there's a lot of development going across the street. You had a new road, new overpass put in there, I believe, and you got national developers. You got Kane, who's, I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're huge in Raleigh. They're that's Mr. Raleigh, and they have a big mixed-use development across the street. Across the other, that's to the west. North of us, you've got Hoffman came in from DC. They're a big developer. They're putting in a big mixed use there, right next to. They bought maybe 15 acres or so from the university there. And Caddy Corner, there's a big park going Caddy Corner for us. But 40 stories, we'll see about that. We got rezoned for 40 stories, so we were happy about that. That was kind of our plan from the get go, and it's got rezoned. It's got it's a great. It's the best property we own, and
that dirt
that dirt, yeah, that's probably.
Okay.
You would think so, Jet. Yeah, it's the best location.
It's a powerhouse. It's right on the side of the highway, isn't it?
Yeah. So originally, we were looking. We wanted to rezone for 40 stories. This was again, I think, So pre-COVID, you've got everybody's working in offices. Mm-hmm. So we knew, Apple's coming. Some other folks. We were hoping for an Apple or some whale to come lease us up. And the thing was, you can't lease it until you get the rezoning. And there was kind of a chicken and the egg. So we got it rezoned, and no whale has come biting yet. So I would think we're going to probably proceed there with multifamily, retail on the floor, and just continue kind of what everyone else has done in that area. Not necessarily go 40 stories, but we'll see how high we go. I don't think we'll be reaching I don't think we'll be the tallest building in Raleigh, but who knows how high we'll go, depending on the pro formas. But so we've got it all. I guess going through permitting still, getting that site is in the brownfield program here in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And it's exciting. It's an exciting location. Just that's a site. Again, there's developers around there doing a great job, and everything's growing. That whole city's booming. I think I saw maybe 60 people a day moving to Raleigh. So it's a neat place. It's a fun place to be.
Absolutely. As far as design of a project like that goes, so you're saying retail on the bottom and then multifamily going up. How long of a time period or how much work goes into, how many units would that be, like multifamily?
It'd roughly? Probably be 200 to 400 units, I'd say.
Wow. In kind of obviously Class A, but would it be more skewed towards a luxury apartment?
Yes.
Yeah. So how much feasibility work goes into mapping that out, and then after feasibility for that kind of rich of a project or product, how much time does it take to design the end product for something that big? Not only exterior, but interior for the units too.
No, that's a good question. That I'm very, very hands-on, very, very detail-oriented with a lot of that. I'm sure our architects and designers really don't appreciate that, but as I don't have a background in those, but it's just I think you just kind of have kind of inklings of what you're looking for in the area. Like I'll tell you this. So in Tallahassee, I remember our hardscape landscape designer. They had this square pool, and it was nice. And I was like, I want this to be like Miami palm tree. They're like, we're not having palm trees. I'm like, no, you're gonna have palm trees. I was like, this isn't. And they're like, I was like, I want these lights. I want it to be flashy.
Right.
And they were saying, they were kind of insulted. They're like, well, this isn't what we do. And I said, look, this isn't what I want to be at. Maybe I would want to be there, but I said, this is what these are for our tenants, right? These are for the students in that location,
sure.
And I want it to be tacky and I want it to be flashy.
Love it.
And there was some battle there. So sometimes you get some, push and pull there. We work with a great another organization out of Richmond, 3 North, and they're really, really good at being very customer oriented. Some designers, architects aren't. They kind of they're set in their ways, but you got to find good. Like I said, the team and the people you work with are important in that. I guess answering your question, I didn't really answer it, but
no,
it takes a long time to go through that. Yeah.
What is there a time frame, do you think, to completion, like ballpark for the Raleigh project?
I'd say the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But that one's kind of on the back burner. We're pushing more with other sites right now. That's one that's one we're sitting tight on right now and going through permitting, but not really pushing on that one.
Wow. In kind of closing segment here, one, I don't think we can make it too much further without saying thanks to Marshall Cooper, friend of ours, I think that set this up.
Great golfer, that guy.
Great athlete.
Yeah.
And fellow podcast guest here. So I appreciate Marshall for setting this up. But pivoting or kind of complimenting what you just said there, you're saying that's not what we're focused on right now. So in closing, what's next for ZDC? So we have this very tumultuous market right now, especially for people acquiring assets. Obviously, if you're trying to develop something new, there are issues or challenges there. So Joe mentioned earlier you guys pivoted in 2008 during a tighter market, but you already own the land and you already have these projects that they're half done or more than that. Maybe you're in lease up. So what are you focused on right now in this market environment with existing projects, and then second to that, with anything else that's not already moving?
I'd say, like I was saying earlier, I think Jeff and Dad and I guess the company having the vision to about 18 months ago start, stop taking on new deals or slow that down. So I mean, we've got, I'm trying to think, 600 units in Huntsville that we're going forward with. We're moving with Columbus, Tampa, Tallahassee, Fort Myers, another Fort Myers. Yeah. I mean, we got
Cape
probably
Coral phase 2, and then
Cape Coral. Yeah, basically just continue with what we've got, and probably opening up the pipeline here shortly. But for new deals, but as you were saying earlier, it just takes forever for these projects. So I mean, these are ones we've been working on for several years already, 3-4 years already on some of these, and just continuing on with those. So.
And for all of these multifamily, you just read through the list that I have kind of written out here, but with these projects, are you leasing up and exiting, or do you keep them for quite a bit of time? What's the plan?
So no, that's something else we kind of like to pat ourselves, or I don't know. Yeah. If the price is right, sure, we'll sell it if someone makes a great offer. But we like to stay involved here. So again, I keep going back to Tallahassee. You've got a lot of developers lease it up, boom, they'll sell it, they're out.
That's right.
And it's I kind of like, when I meet with these neighbors, you look them in the eye, shake their hand, you can tell them, hey, we're here for the long haul, we're here for the duration. We want what's best interest of this area long term. We're not, fee developers looking to flip it. Not a knock, not at all. That's a great business model. That's not our business model. But we typically like to stay long term holders, and we're gonna be here. We're gonna be your neighbor. So if you have any issues, let's discuss them and get it out. So.
Wow. And Joe, when we chatted on the phone, I said, is there anything else you're taking on new right now? And you said, likely not. But is there anything outside of these existing projects and focusing on keeping the wheels moving and making sure they, you guys execute well? Looking forward looking, is there anything that you see, and maybe you don't want to share it, but is there anything you see in the market as an opportunity amidst all of these kind of, we have super high insurance on all of our deals right now. We have interest rates that are doubled or tripled. Right. Insurance is doubled or tripled in Florida, especially in the coast here too. What do you see as opportunity, or is there anything else that you're thinking about right now?
Well, typically in these times, they do think about the no purchase environment again. Yeah. And, they'd probably look at those type of opportunities if there's a, complete shutdown of real estate. Right. Other than that, I feel like we're morphing somewhat into a family office too. So they will invest in other industries unrelated to the real estate.
Oh wow!
If an opportunity is out there in different areas. So yes, there's nothing specific, but there's they'll look pretty much at everything, any new opportunity.
Fascinating. Last question, and my favorite question. Is there any deal, asset class, market, any project type that you guys have never done that you would be interested in doing? And I know this is kind of a question in your wheelhouse because you seem so hungry to do all of these big challenges. What have you guys not done that you really want to do at some point?
Well, Joe and I are smiling. A hotel. I've been trying to do this hotel in Tallahassee for 5 years, and we've got it. We're going to do it. Some might argue with us, but no, there's a good... I'd say a hotel. What do you think, Joe?
Hotel. I mean, the other thing I was thinking is the new product of the build for rent town. We have
build to rent houses.
Townhomes under development. It's a new kind of niche thing that we're evaluating because it seems to be very popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are signed with Hilton for an Embassy Suites in Tallahassee, but again, it's preliminary.
That's what I was going to ask. Who was the hotel brand that you're going to have in there? What draws you to doing the hotel? What's the itch that you need to scratch? What makes you want to do it?
I just think it's good to diversify, and we didn't do any apartments till we did, and we didn't do student housing till we did. So why not try a hotel right next to campus? You'd lease it up at least 6 days a year for the football games. So
that's right.
But
I love it. I think that's a great place to stop. I thought phenomenal interview. Thanks for having me here. Is there any piece of the story of the Zimmer family or ZDC that we missed in any way, or is there any other kind of last parting words?
No, thank you for coming out here on this rainy day, and
that's okay.
Enjoyed talking to you.
It was perfect. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.